Let me tell you something that may completely change the way you interpret silence in a relationship, especially when you're dealing with someone who has avoidant tendencies. When they suddenly become distant, stop responding, disappear, or seem to vanish without explanation, your mind naturally goes to the most painful conclusion. They don't care. I wasn't important. They've lost interest. But there's another psychological possibility that many people never consider. For an avoidant person, silence isn't always a sign that nothing is happening. Sometimes it's a sign that far too much is happening internally. Most people experience love through closeness, communication, affection, consistency, and shared experiences. But for someone with a strong avoidant pattern, genuine feelings can initially trigger fear rather than comfort. That doesn't automatically mean their feelings aren't real. Sometimes the intensity of those feelings clashes with everything they've learned about intimacy. If they've spent years believing that depending on another person means losing their freedom, being vulnerable means getting hurt, or becoming emotionally close means losing control, then falling for someone can feel less like a beautiful beginning and more like an internal emergency. They may not be running because they feel nothing. They may be running because what they feel is becoming difficult for them to regulate. One of the deeper fears associated with avoidance is the fear of being emotionally consumed. Somewhere inside, there can be a belief that allowing someone too deeply into their world means sacrificing who they are. They have spent so much time protecting their independence that it becomes part of their identity. Then someone comes along who makes them care, makes them miss someone, makes them want closeness, and suddenly that carefully protected identity starts to feel unstable. So what happens? They create distance, they become quiet, they shut down. They convince themselves that stepping away will restore the emotional balance they had before. Silence becomes a way of calming themselves down and regaining a sense of control. But there's an important detail people often miss. Sometimes they're not only avoiding you, they're also avoiding their own emotions. They don't want to sit with the realization that they care, because admitting that they care means admitting that someone can affect them. And once they acknowledge that, they may have to become vulnerable, communicate honestly, take emotional risks, and change patterns that have protected them for years. For someone deeply uncomfortable with intimacy, that can feel frightening. This is why distance should not automatically be interpreted as indifference. In avoidant attachment patterns, withdrawal can function as a coping response when emotional closeness becomes overwhelming. The connection you've been trying to create may actually be the very thing triggering their internal alarm system. They may want the connection and simultaneously feel unable to tolerate the intensity of it. But let's make one thing very clear. Understanding someone's psychology does not mean excusing their behavior. Their fear doesn't give them permission to neglect you, manipulate you, disappear whenever they want, or give you endless crumbs of affection. You deserve communication, respect, and emotional consistency. Understanding why someone withdraws is useful because it prevents you from automatically turning their behavior into a judgment about your own worth. Their silence is not proof that you weren't enough. It may be evidence of an internal conflict they haven't learned to manage. And this is where the avoidant paradox becomes so confusing. They can distance themselves from you while still thinking about you. They can avoid contact while still feeling emotionally connected. They can create space because closeness has become too intense, not necessarily because you have become meaningless. So instead of only asking, "Why aren't they talking to me?" sometimes ask a deeper question. What emotion might they be trying so hard not to experience? Now think about those strange little moments when they suddenly reappear. Maybe they send a casual, "Hey," after days of silence. Maybe they view your story. Maybe they like something you posted, but never actually start a conversation. Maybe they find some tiny excuse to appear in your world and then disappear again. It's easy to dismiss these moments as meaningless. You might think they accidentally clicked something or that they're simply bored. But sometimes, these small gestures reveal a person who hasn't completely emotionally detached, but still doesn't feel safe enough to approach directly. When an avoidant person makes a small appearance without actually creating meaningful connection, it doesn't necessarily mean they're prepared to return to the relationship. Sometimes it means they are struggling to completely let go. There's a major difference between wanting full reconnection and being unable to fully disconnect. They may want to feel your presence without having to deal with the vulnerability that comes with genuine closeness. They want to know you're still there, but they don't necessarily know how to step toward you without triggering their own defenses. It's like trying to remain connected while keeping one foot firmly outside the emotional door. For someone who has built their identity around being self-sufficient, intimacy can feel incredibly exposing. Genuine connection requires them to lower the defenses they've relied on for years. Instead of openly saying, "I miss you," they might watch what you're doing. Instead of saying, "I'm thinking about you," they might send a meaningless message. Instead of having a vulnerable conversation, they may simply find a small way to appear on your radar. This creates the classic push and pull dynamic. From the outside, it can look like confusion, but internally, there may be two competing forces. One part wants connection, while another part immediately wants protection. That simple "hey" can therefore carry more emotional conflict than it appears to. They may be asking themselves, can I talk to this person without becoming overwhelmed? Can I get close without losing control? Can I handle these feelings without becoming dependent? Of course, not every breadcrumb has some deep, hidden meaning, and you shouldn't treat every like, view, or message as proof of love. Sometimes, people simply act inconsistently. But when these behaviors repeatedly appear alongside a clear pattern of closeness, followed by withdrawal, they can reflect emotional ambivalence. For some avoidant individuals, indirect gestures feel safer than direct vulnerability. A short message, an emoji, a reaction to your post, or a late-night check-in allows them to express a tiny amount of emotion without fully exposing themselves. It's almost like emotional Morse code. I'm thinking about you. I miss you. I'm still curious about you. But they may struggle to say those things directly because once feelings are spoken aloud, they become real. And something becoming real means they can no longer pretend they're completely unaffected. The deeper fear isn't always closeness itself. Sometimes it's the possibility of becoming emotionally dependent. The moment they realize that another person can influence their mood, peace, confidence, or sense of security, their defenses may become even stronger. That's when they can disappear again. And that's why the pattern can feel so contradictory. Completely staying away may hurt because the connection still matters, yet fully returning may feel overwhelming because the connection matters too much. So they remain somewhere in the middle, close enough to maintain an emotional thread, but distant enough to feel protected. That middle ground can be confusing and painful for the person on the receiving end, which is why understanding the pattern should never replace having healthy boundaries. You can recognize their internal conflict without allowing that conflict to keep you trapped in uncertainty. There are connections that never get spoken about, messages that never become conversations, and quiet signs that someone is still watching from a distance. Most people see this behavior and immediately call it indifference. But indifference usually doesn't keep checking your stories late at night. It doesn't randomly appear after weeks of silence. It doesn't quietly maintain a connection without ever admitting that one exists. What you're often seeing may be suppressed attachment, rather than complete emotional detachment. The person may have buried their feelings beneath fear, pride, self-protection, and the need to remain in control. What seems casual from the outside can carry enormous emotional meaning for them. They are attempting to manage their feelings by controlling how much of those feelings they allow themselves to express. And ironically, every time they find some small way to reach toward you, they reveal that their control isn't as complete as they want it to be. So if they occasionally check in without actually creating a conversation, don't automatically assume you've been forgotten. You may still occupy a place in their emotional world, even if they've placed you behind a wall. The more important question isn't simply whether they think about you, it's whether they know how to handle everything they experience when they do. An avoidant person may not always reach out because they're prepared to reconnect. Sometimes they reach out because completely disconnecting has become difficult. Have you ever noticed how someone with avoidant tendencies can suddenly become incredibly warm? They let you see a side of them that they normally keep hidden. They become affectionate, open, relaxed, and emotionally present. Then, almost as soon as genuine closeness develops, they suddenly become cold again. That shift can feel deeply personal. It can feel like you did something wrong, or that they suddenly changed their mind about you. But sometimes the retreat happens precisely because the connection has become emotionally real. When an avoidant finally relaxes their defenses, intimacy can stop feeling safe and start feeling threatening. The security you desperately want may activate their internal alarm system. Their mind can interpret genuine closeness as a loss of control. I'm getting too attached. I'm letting this person too far inside. I need to pull back. This is sometimes described through the idea of deactivating strategies, automatic behaviors that reduce the intensity of attachment when closeness becomes uncomfortable. Suddenly, they need space. They become unusually busy. They create an argument. They bury themselves in work. They convince themselves that something about the relationship isn't right. These reactions aren't necessarily conscious attempts to punish you. Often, they're ways of bringing their emotional intensity back down to a level they can tolerate. At the deepest level, they may be protecting the identity they've built around independence. Love challenges the boundaries they've spent years constructing around themselves. If someone becomes consistently caring, accepting, and emotionally available, it can force an uncomfortable question. If I let this person truly become part of my life, where does my independence end and this relationship begin? And here's the part people often misunderstand. If you meant absolutely nothing to them, there would be much less internal conflict to manage. Strong defenses are usually activated where something feels emotionally significant. Their withdrawal can sometimes be connected to old experiences where needing someone led to disappointment, vulnerability resulted in shame, or dependence ended in abandonment. When a present relationship touches those old emotional wounds, the nervous system can react as if the past is happening again. Somewhere deep inside, the message becomes, never let this happen again. That can also lead to self-sabotage. On an unconscious level, they may be testing whether you'll remain when they're difficult, inconsistent, or emotionally distant. They may never consciously think, I'm testing this person's love, but their behavior can create exactly that situation. The tragedy is that the very behavior they use to find reassurance can destroy the emotional safety they actually need. You don't have to participate in that cycle. You can understand their fear without accepting chaos. You can remain compassionate without abandoning your boundaries. You can be steady without chasing them. Sometimes, the healthiest response is simply to remain grounded and allow them to experience what regulated closeness looks like. Yes, The pattern can feel paradoxical. The closer you become, the more they may retreat. But don't automatically interpret every retreat as proof of love either. Withdrawal is information, not confirmation. It tells you something about their emotional capacity, but their actions still matter. Now let's talk about another behavior that is incredibly easy to misunderstand: the appearance of forgetfulness. They may act as though they don't remember your birthday. They might pretend they forgot the song you loved, the coffee you always ordered, or some tiny detail you mentioned months ago. But sometimes, the person who appears least attentive is actually noticing far more than they admit. Someone with strong attachment defenses may become extremely observant of patterns. They notice changes in tone, response time, facial expressions, moods, and behavior. Their nervous system can become highly sensitive to signs that something is shifting. So while they may casually shrug and act like they don't remember, they may have stored far more information than you realize. That's why months later, they might suddenly mention something you said once during a late-night conversation. They remember the little detail you assumed had disappeared from their mind. They may remember your preferences, your routines, the things that made you laugh, or even subtle changes in your behavior. Media can reveal importance. What we repeatedly remember often has emotional significance. But openly acknowledging that they remember you can also make them feel exposed. If they admit they noticed everything, they're also admitting that they care enough to pay attention. So sometimes they hide their memory behind coincidence. I just happened to be near that place. I saw this and thought you might like it. It reminded me of something you said. Maybe it was coincidence. Maybe it wasn't. The important thing is not to turn every small gesture into proof of hidden love. Instead, pay attention to the larger pattern. Do their actions consistently show awareness of you? Do they use that awareness to build genuine connection, or only to keep you emotionally available? Their selective forgetfulness can also protect them from responsibility. Admitting that they remember means admitting that they care, and caring can create expectations, accountability, and vulnerability. Pretending not to notice becomes easier than acknowledging emotional responsibility. But watch what happens when you actually pull away. If your communication changes, they may notice far faster than they let on. Suddenly, they're aware of the timing, the silence, and the change in your behavior. That doesn't mean you should interrogate them about what they remember. You don't need to force a confession. Simply observe the contradiction and maintain your standards. You can recognize what you see without arguing about it. Your goal isn't to collect evidence that they remember you. Your goal is to notice what they do with that memory. Do they use it to create something healthier, or do they use it to maintain distance while keeping you emotionally attached? That distinction matters. And now we reach one of the biggest shifts you can make. Stop building your life around their silence. Something changes when you stop chasing their approval, stop monitoring their behavior, and stop organizing your emotional world around whether they come closer or pull away. You begin investing your energy back into yourself. And that kind of independence can change the entire dynamic. It's not about becoming distant to make them jealous. It's not about pretending you don't care. It's about becoming emotionally grounded enough that their behavior no longer determines your sense of worth. An avoidant person may be comfortable when they feel they control the distance, the pace, and the level of emotional access. They may feel secure when they know you'll continue waiting, reaching out, or trying to repair the connection. But when you stop standing outside the door, waiting for them to decide whether to let you in, the structure changes. You're no longer participating in the same pattern. You haven't punished them. You haven't necessarily rejected them. You've simply returned your attention to your own life. That's when they may begin noticing the difference. They might send a vague message, bring up an old memory, ask a question they don't really need answered. Find some small reason to see whether the emotional connection is still there. But again, don't confuse curiosity with commitment. Someone can miss you and still be incapable of giving you the relationship you deserve. Your growth should never become a strategy for getting an avoidant person back. Your healing belongs to you. When your silence comes from peace instead of revenge, it carries a completely different energy. When your boundaries come from self-respect rather than punishment, they become stronger. When you grow because you genuinely want a better life, you stop needing their reaction to validate your transformation. And that is the real shift. Whether they return or not, they eventually have to recognize that you are no longer waiting in the same place. You are becoming someone who doesn't need to chase what continually runs away. Your healing may even force them to confront something they've spent years avoiding, their own emotional patterns. But what they do with that realization is their responsibility. Your responsibility is to keep moving forward. Don't chase validation. Don't build your worth around whether an avoidant notices your growth. Let your life become bigger than their fear. Because the most powerful thing you can communicate isn't, "Look what you're losing." It's simply, "I chose to become whole, whether you were ready for me or not." There is something deeply revealing about how an avoidant person can respond when you show them your emotions without hiding behind a smile, a joke, or carefully chosen words. I'm talking about the moments when you become completely real in front of them. Maybe you cry, maybe your voice shakes, maybe you finally admit how deeply something has affected you. And instead of pulling you closer, they become quiet. They freeze. They look uncomfortable. They may change the subject, leave the room, or suddenly find something else they need to do. In that moment, it's incredibly easy to turn their reaction against yourself. You start thinking, was I too emotional? Did I push them away? Did showing them this side of me make them stop loving me? But their discomfort doesn't automatically mean your vulnerability was rejected. Sometimes, your emotional honesty touches a part of them they don't know how to handle. Many people with strong avoidant patterns learned early that emotions were unsafe. Perhaps vulnerability was dismissed, criticized, ignored, or associated with conflict. Maybe they learned that showing pain made them weak or gave someone else the power to hurt them. Over time, emotional distance became protection. So when you cry in front of them, they may not know how to respond. They're not necessarily thinking, "I don't want to see this." They may be thinking, without even realizing it, "I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this." Your tears create a situation where their usual defenses don't work. They can't solve your feelings with logic. They can't control the moment by creating distance. They can't easily hide behind independence when someone they care about is standing in front of them, emotionally exposed. And that can overwhelm them. Think about what your vulnerability actually communicates. When you cry in front of someone you love, you're not automatically demanding that they fix you. Sometimes you're simply saying, "I trust you enough to let you see me like this." For someone who has spent years avoiding emotional dependence, that level of trust can feel enormous. It can be beautiful and frightening at the same time. This is why their nervous system may react before their conscious mind even understands what is happening. They might freeze. They might become unusually quiet. They might look emotionally disconnected. They might even leave because creating physical distance feels like the fastest way to reduce the intensity inside them. That doesn't mean you should automatically interpret their reaction as proof that they secretly love you. Not every uncomfortable response has a hidden romantic meaning. But it does mean you shouldn't immediately assume that your emotions were wrong simply because they didn't know how to receive them. Your vulnerability isn't something you need to apologize for. Your tears aren't a character flaw. Your emotional depth isn't something you need to shrink just to make another person comfortable. In fact, your openness may reveal something they have spent years avoiding within themselves. When you allow yourself to express sadness, fear, hurt, or love openly, you're demonstrating a form of emotional honesty they may have never learned. You become a mirror. And mirrors can be uncomfortable because they show us what we would rather not see. Your emotional openness may remind them of their own buried feelings, their own unmet needs, their fear of depending on someone, or the parts of themselves they've kept locked away for years. That's why their reaction can sometimes look so disproportionate to the moment. You see yourself crying. They may be experiencing an entire internal conflict. One part of them may want to comfort you. Another may be afraid of becoming responsible for your emotions. Another may fear that responding emotionally will pull them into a level of intimacy they don't know how to manage. So they retreat. Then later, when they're alone, the moment may return to their mind. They may remember the expression on your face, the change in your voice, the words you said, or the fact that you trusted them enough to stop pretending that everything was fine. Unlike a polished romantic moment, vulnerability isn't rehearsed. It isn't designed to impress anyone. That's precisely what can make it so powerful. Real emotion leaves an impression because it cannot be easily dismissed as performance. But you have to be careful here.